Alright, Claudia, here's your image, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do a proper color correction in order to get more photorealistic look from your images. Okay, so as I see right now, your render is a little bit, you can say, overwashed, and this is okay because it's much more easier to add contrast than to remove contrast. So you want to make your images like this one exactly a little bit higher with a higher gamma. So on the later stage you can reduce the gamma and bring that contrast back to the image. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do is to check exposure, and as we see here, I'm lowering the exposure, I'm lowering the gamma correction. I'm starting to get really nice contrast to the image. You can also check your exposure here, but in our case I get a lot of overexposed areas here, so just work with this carefully because you don't want to overdo it. So I'm going to add just a little bit of the gamma, and I want to leave a little bit more of a contrast that I can add later. Okay. The second stage is I want to correct the color balance. So as you already know, I'm doing on the midtones and the high tones, I'm adding a little bit red and yellowish, and on the highlights I'm adding a little bit of blue and cyan, something like this. So as you see here, our image got those shadows. Now on the shadows I add a little bit more of a bluish here to bring back my black colors, and I can also tweak a little bit the cyan. So before, after, we can see sort of haze going on here and going on this here on the texture. And when I press it, you can see really nice reflections, all the reflections just coming out from your image. You can see it here too and here as well, so all your image gets way better contrast, and we're still not overexposing it. Okay. Another method that you can do is to fix your curves. Just go to modify, adjustment curves, and then go to red, green, and blue channels. So let's start from the red. I'm doing it by the channels because it's way easier to see the proper colors, what you need to add and what you need to remove in order to get the proper colors. So this is what I'm doing. Well, I'm adding a little bit more of a dark tones on the red channel, on the green channel, and on the blue channel, like this. Something like this. So let's see how it was before, and now it's after. We can see that our all the dark colors came back again to the image, and we can see that we have a little bit yellowish illumination going on here, and we have a little bit bluish illumination going here, and doesn't look that natural. But after we correcting our curves, we can see more contrast, more natural shadows, soft shadows that was not there before we apply this. Just take a look here. We can see that those shadows around this area and here coming back again to our image. Okay. This is basically it. The basic structure that I'm going through while correcting images, while making basic color correction. I can add also photorealistic aspects such as lens correction. Some people like it, some people don't, because if you have clean render like this, you don't really need to do this, but I'm doing it to my images because it's sort of my style. So I'm adding a little bit of a lens distortion. So my image gets, as you see here, as I'm going more, my image gets lens distortion. So I give only 1. You can give 2, but most of the cases I give -1. Chromatic aberration, something very important. Let me just exaggerate. As you see here, channel shift in color. We get this in photograph, in real photos, in photography. So I'm adding something between 5 and 6 because chromatic aberration is only meant to give a feeling of a real photo, and if you start seeing green lines like we see one here, it means it's a little bit too much. So just go ahead and reduce it. Something like this could work fine. I can see the chromatic aberration here, so I'm going to reduce this line again, about 3, something like this. Okay. Vignette. We can add or remove. As you see here, we can add or remove those camera distortions. So most of the time I'm adding this to my image, something like this, just to give a little bit darkened corner, so it will our eye will concentrate it more on the center of the image. Some people do not like it. Some people like really nice clear images without any darkened areas, corners, but in my images I like to edit. I just like this effect. It brings more photorealistic look to my image. Okay, so let me click Ctrl Z. This is how it was before, this is how it was after. So our image looks now more as photograph. So this is photorealistic aspect. Okay, after doing this, very important to if you make small images, it's very important to add sharpen effect. So your because lens correction is really blurring your image. Let me just zoom inside, and I want to show you what I mean by saying blurring. Okay, let me bring the history, and as you see here, we got really nice and sharp image, and lens correction kind of gives a little bit blurry look. So how we can bring it back? How we can bring sharpen back? There is a nice filter called sharpen. If you press it, bam, you bring everything back. All the sharpen effect come back. You can press Ctrl Shift F and reduce it a little bit, so it will not be too sharp, too noisy, too grainy for the eye. I always reduce it about 90-80%. Some images needs to have really good reduction because you use a lot of anti-aliasing filter that supplies pretty sharp images. So this is very similar to anti-aliasing that you have in 3D Max. Sorry, in Cinema 4D. V-Ray for Cinema 4D. Okay. So here it is. This is basic 5 procedures that I do in order to make really nice photorealistic looking image. Let's just see how it was before. This is how it was before. We see overwash, not much contrast. And this is how it looks at the end. All the contrast, everything is back together. Of course, you can use brightness contrast filters if you think you need to add a little bit more contrast, or you need to fix your brightness or exposure. You can also do that. So we did it like this. If it's too much, you can always press Ctrl Shift F, bring the fade panel, and reduce the strength of this effect. Okay, so this is how it is. Pretty basic steps. Later on, next week I'm going to we're going to render passes, and I'm going to show you how you can work your images, how can you improve your image look by using V-Ray passes in Photoshop. Okay, So go ahead, try this on. Thanks a lot.